Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are reading a one-shot, and at the time of recording this one, I am planning on putting this one up in April, so we'll see if I actually am able to do that. This one is a My Hero Academia fanfic. It is called Counting the Days by Hyuge, and it's their extended cut. They wrote this one twice, so like the first one only has like 3,000 words or something like that, and this one has over 10,000. It is rated T. There are no archive warnings. It is a MM relationship between Bakugou Katsuki and Kirishima Eijiro. They are the only two characters in this fic. The other tags for this fic are alternate universe no quirks, social media influencer Bakugou Katsuki, content creator Bakugou Katsuki, boxer Kirishima Eijiro, hiking, travel blog, getting together, fluff, tooth-rotting fluff, zine, heart's desire, aged up characters. Like I said, this one is over 10,000 words. Total, it is 10,913 words, and it is a one-shot. Here is the summary of Counting the Days, the extended cut by Hyuge. Katsuki loved hiking. It's his favorite thing to do. When he decided he wanted to hike the length of Japan and set a new record, he fully intended to commit. He set up social media accounts to document his journey. Many people enjoyed his rough personality combined with passion for the outdoors. He was prepared to embark on the journey alone, but when a new follower by the name of Mountain Riot 1016 sent him a DM, Katsuki was no longer alone in his travels. So the author just put a couple little notes that the full, I guess the original fic was kind of written for a zine, and then they decided to write a little bit longer one. So that's pretty cool. They also have like a lot of notes in there, thanking a lot of different people in there for beta reading their story and stuff like that if you'd like to go and look at it. Here's the fic. 145 days. As Katsuki's cab pulled up to the small hotel only a few hundred meters from Cape Soya, the northernmost tip of Japan, he reminded himself of his goal to beat. The last person to walk the way across Japan did it in 145 days 20 years ago. The trek was successfully completed by a foreigner from the States back in 2005, and no one had attempted it since then. Katsuki's goal was to hike the length of Japan using roughly the same route but in less time and as a national. The record holder had traversed Japan from south to north. Katsuki intended to do it in the opposite direction. It was late. The sun had already set, and when the first sliver of dawn began to rise over the horizon, he could start his journey at the tiny peninsula that was Cape Soya. He had prepared for his journey for months. His family had always been big fans of hiking and mountain climbing. When he first decided to post videos of himself on hikes in the woods and the mountains, he had never anticipated gaining any followers. They were mostly for himself, little snippets of the world around him that you could only experience when you got out of a vehicle and walked. However, as he posted more videos, his follower count steadily grew. People found his grouchy demeanor amusing and a stark contrast to how much he loved the outdoors and sharing it with others. When Katsuki declared he was going to hike the length of Japan, he received mixed responses. Many people took bets in the comment section on how long he would last before he called it quits. His most dedicated followers offered good wishes and support. He worked hard to save money for his endeavor, anticipating being out of work for months and building enough of an audience to gain monetization online. It would help fund his trip. He set up an account so that anyone that sent him donations would get exclusive videos that weren't posted to other forms of social media, and some folks were already offering to let him stay with them when he reached their area. It was finally time to begin. He threw his bag down on the hotel bed after getting checked in. He pulled out his laptop and his phone. Katsuki planned to record a few minutes of his trip each day, though he couldn't guarantee being able to post every day. The lack of signal or battery could be a problem at times, especially when he reached the mountains. He turned on the camera on his phone and sat down on his bed, then pressed record.
This is day 0. I officially head out tomorrow morning. I'm only a couple hundred meters from Camp Cape Soya. It's exciting and terrifying that this is finally happening. Thanks everyone for your support with the pre-trip plans. I'm going to turn in early for the night, but I'll go live when I officially start tomorrow at sunrise. See you then, losers.
He ended the recording and proceeded to upload it. Katsuki did one last bag check before turning in for the night. His pack consisted of a small single-person tent, a thin blanket, his laptop and chargers, a canteen for water, toothbrush and toothpaste, soap, a first aid kit, 2 changes of clothes, his wallet, a flashlight, and a bag of protein bars. Most of his meals over the next several months would likely come from convenience stores, not always in areas where quality food would be readily available. Katsuki crawled into bed and relished in the comfort of the mattress. How long would it be before he slept in a bed again? It was hard to say at present. He set the alarm on his phone and shut his eyes for sleep. Time passes. Day 1. Cape Soya at sunrise was magnificent. With the peninsula, he could watch the sunrise in the east as it stretched over the ocean waters. March mornings in Hokkaido were a lot colder than in Tokyo. Katsuki shivered in his sweatshirt and jeans as he stood near the water. He tapped the button to go live. His cheeks and nose were red from the cold, but his eyes shone with enthusiasm as he smiled wildly at the camera. This was it. He was starting his adventure.
It's morning of day 1,
he said into the camera.
I'm officially standing on Cape Soya, and the sun is coming up just over the horizon.
Katsuki flipped the camera's view so that the audience could see the sun crescent over the water. The ocean was awash in hues of orange and pink, a new beginning. He flipped the camera back around. As he exhaled, his breath came out in a visible puff.
It's cold as fuck,
he complained. Hearts and laugh reacts appeared on his screen as more followers woke up to join him on his journey.
Guess it's time to start walking,
Katsuki said.
As long as you're not assholes, feel free to send me DMs. I'll leave my messages open. I'm sure it's going to be boring as fuck at times.
Day 2.
I walked about 16 kilometers yesterday,
said Katsuki into the camera. He was still inside his tent, curled up in his blanket. It was still dark out, sunrise still 15 minutes away. So he had his flashlight on. It hung from a hook attached to the roof of the tent.
I'm hoping I can beat that today. The longer I can go in a day, the faster I can finish. I set my tent up in a park last night. I'm going to eat some food. By the time I'm done, the sun should be up, and then I'll be able to take some time off again. Thanks for all the messages yesterday. I'll try to respond as much as I can.
Katsuki pulled the food out of his bag he bought the night before and peeled open the plastic freshness seal. As he ate, he scrolled through his DMs. He hated talking to people, but he had watched Kitaro's video more than once, and he had talked about how lonely the trek was. Katsuki didn't need people. He was content to be by himself. But in the off chance that loneliness did start to creep in, he didn't want to isolate his followers. There was a text message from his, though he was loath to admit it, friend Todoroki. The rich kid had a rather estranged relationship with his father. Even though Katsuki insisted that he didn't want friends or family to back his trip, Todoroki insisted on using his father's credit card to help fund the journey.
I'm not paying for it,
he said, a coy smile on his face as he entered the card information into Katsuki's Patreon. Todoroki was a cheeky bastard. Dumbass number 3. Do you need more money yet? Katsuki blinked at the absurdity of the message. He was only 1 day into his trip and had more than enough to last him. Katsuki, no, go blow your dad's fortune on something else. Dumbass number 3. Thumbs up emoji. Katsuki blinked dumbly. Katsuki, did you just text thumbs up emoji? Dumbass number 3. Is that not how you do it? He stared at his phone in disbelief. Just how dense was that dumbass? Day number 7. It was midday as Katsuki walked with the camera pointed at his face. He had his earbuds in and had decided to go live on his walk. Comments filled his screen and he scanned the messages. Katsuki smirked at the back and forth several people were having.
Yeah,
he said, a little out of breath.
According to my location on maps, I've got about 110 kilometers I want to make to the next town before I call it quits for the day. Where am I going to stay?
He read the message on the screen aloud.
It looks like there's a hot spring there, so I'm going to get a room for the night. I need a real meal and a bed. I hope there's a laundromat within walking distance of the inn.
Isn't everything within walking distance for you? Katsuki snorted.
Yeah, I guess you're right, but I mean within a few blocks.
You'll be approaching my town soon. I'll come for a walk with you.
Don't push yourself,
Katsuki said.
But if you want to, then feel free.
A few people had walked with him already, but they usually gave up after a kilometer or two. They just wanted the recognition for coming along. They'd take a selfie with Katsuki, post it, and leave. Day 11. As Katsuki lay in his tent for the night, a new DM notification appeared on his screen. He got a lot of one-off messages, but there were a few people that messaged him regularly. The username was one he had never seen before. His notifications showed that the person had just followed him. A DM immediately after a follow was always sketchy as hell, but he opened the chat to see what it said. Mountain Riot 1016. Hey, your account kept getting wrecked to me in my For You page and I decided to check it out. You're like super badass. Ah, so just another fan, not a spam account. Good enough. Katsuki tapped a quick reply. Dynamite Hiker 420. Thanks, I appreciate the follow. Mountain Riot 1016. No problem, man. It must be really exhausting walking that much every day. Dynamite Hiker 420. Once you're used to it, it's not so bad, but it does still take a lot out of you. Mountain Riot 1016. So cool. Katsuki smirked. He yawned and rolled onto his side, the glow of his screen illuminating his face. Dynamite Hiker 420. I gotta get some sleep, but feel free to hit me up tomorrow. Mountain Riot 1016. Good night, Bakugou. Dynamite Hiker 420. Night Riot. Day 19. As Katsuki settled down in Odoro Park, a smile tugged at his lips. He had already walked over 330 kilometers in less than 3 weeks. His progress was steady. Sapporo would be his home for the night, then he would head out yet again. Having arrived in the city, he decided to find somewhere warm to stay for the night. His legs were tired, and dark-rimmed crescents encircled his under eyes. Katsuki needed a break, but too long in any one spot meant his resolve to continue could potentially weaken. He recorded footage of the park to post later and sent a message to his patrons with an update on where he was currently at. Immediately, replies poured in congratulating him on making it that far. Sapporo was a major city on the map and a real reference point for people to understand how much he had walked so far. One of the replies came from a certain red-headed boxer that had first messaged him about a week ago. Mountain Riot 1016, or Kirishima as he had introduced himself, ended up subscribing to Katsuki's account the next day. He also became one of the most prolific commenters in such a short period of time. Every day he had a cheerful comment and a kind reply, pushing him forward. Normally, someone that interacted that much would get on his nerves, but something about Kirishima's messages put him at ease. Kirishima, at Mountain Riot 1016, March 25, replying to at Dynamite Hiker 420, you did it, 1 milestone down, grinning emoticon. Katsuki begrudgingly smiled and tapped a reply.
Yeah, making progress,
he said, then pulled up his map in search of a local inn. Day 23. Mountain Riot 1016. Where are you now? Dynamite Hiker 420. Just set up camp in the woods around Fushimi Shrine. There's a coffee shop and a supermarket nearby. Gonna relax a bit, then head over to them. Mountain Riot 1016. Can't believe you've gone almost 70 kilometers in the last 4 days. Dynamite Hiker 420. My legs believe it. Mountain Riot 1016. I'm still so jealous you camped at Sapporo Zoo. It's on my bucket list. We could go together next time, Katsuki thought, but chose not to type it. Dynamite Hiker 420. You should check it out. I wish I had more than one night there. The Sapporo Zoo had been a delight. It was one of the checkpoints on his list. He had a few sites he specifically wanted to make sure he covered on his trek across the country, and camping in the zoo was near the top. The zookeepers brought small animals to the campgrounds for campers to pet and play with before returning to their enclosures. His followers ate that shit up. Katsuki posted a rare selfie of himself holding some of the animals, grin wide and teeth on display. He wouldn't mind re-experiencing it in the future, possibly with a certain redhead. Day 27. The Ribunji Kaihin Koen campgrounds was noisy with the fishing port next to it, but setting up a tent besides the Uchiura Bay was a sight to behold. Katsuki stood with his toes in the sand looking out at the sea. He didn't have long before he made it back to the main island of Japan. It was hard to believe the first leg of his trip was almost over. He took a picture of the ocean, and instead of posting it online for everyone to see, he sent it directly to Kirishima. It was probably a terrible decision, but he followed up with a "wish you were here," then pocketed his phone to breathe in the salty air. Day 36. Katsuki said a prayer as he approached Orito Shrine and Ishigami Shrine in the Kazamara region. The two shrines sat beside each other just outside Hebiura village. He had been back on the main island for a day and was slowly making his way south through Aomori Prefecture. The village was a small fishing port in which Katsuki was thankfully eating fresh fish for dinner. He snapped a picture of the two shrines to post online for everyone to see. They stood tall and proud, twin flames meant to bless those that visited. Katsuki was by no means religious, but he felt a sense of pride well up with every shrine he saw. They were built hundreds of years ago, each their own piece of Japanese history, and he was able to experience a fraction of that history just by being there. A triumphant smile crossed his face. He nodded at the shrine as if saying farewell, then made his way back towards the village to rest for the night. It didn't take long for a message from Kirishima to arrive, filling Katsuki with even more joy. Day 44.
Thanks to a generous donation I received, I'll be staying at the Hoshino Resort tonight. There's a cafe that shares the parking lot, and across the street is Fudo Shrine.
Katsuki turned his phone camera around to display the shrine and the cafe. He watched as people reacted to his live stream. Various comments and emojis filled his screen before he flipped the camera back around to reveal his face.
Since I'll be able to relax in the hotel room, I'll be uploading some stuff I've taken recently to Patreon. If you want to see exclusive images and videos that aren't posted here, you can subscribe to me there.
He hated the need for shameless promotion. He'd rather just talk about hiking and the many sights he had seen so far, but if he wanted to keep funding his trip, he would need to continue increasing his subscriber base. Katsuki ended the live stream and headed inside the resort to get checked in. One of the employees guided him to his room. He bowed to the woman before she left. Katsuki barely had time to walk in the room before his phone buzzed in his pocket. He took it out to see Kirishima calling. A small smile stretched his face in two. Katsuki kicked off his shoes and flopped back onto the bed as he answered the call. His head hit the pillows and all the energy from the day withered away. Maybe he wouldn't bother with photos and videos tonight. He'd rather sleep. Though not until after he's eaten at their luxury restaurant and taken a bath in the hot springs. The resort also had a large patio that overlooked the lake. Katsuki decided when he approached the building that he should probably snap a few photos from the scenic overlook as well. Somehow, his hiking channel had become a full-time job.
Hey,
he said into the phone a little gruffly. Hey, said Kirishima, you sound tired.
I am tired,
Katsuki confessed.
I've been walking for a month and a half already.
That's so impressive, said Kirishima in awe. I don't think I would have lasted a week.
Most people wouldn't.
Katsuki rolled to his side, burying his face in the white pillowcase beneath his head.
It gets lonely more than anything.
Kirishima hummed in thought before asking, What's it like?
The days aren't so bad. I can focus on walking and getting to my next rest stop, counting down the kilometers until I can be done. It's the nights that are difficult, especially when I'm in my little tent in the middle of the woods.
Katsuki blinked the sleep out of his eyes, fighting his body's desire for rest. He still had so many things to do. He yawned.
Talking to you has made it feel a little less lonely.
Whether it was the drowsiness, how relaxed he felt in a comfortable bed, or how content Kirishima made him feel was unknown. But the confession that Kirishima made him feel less lonely in life felt natural on his lips. Would it be weird if I asked you to stay with me when you get to the area? Kirishima asked. Katsuki shook his head, but then remembered Kirishima couldn't see him.
No, not really. Several people have offered me their homes to stay in already. Wouldn't be any different.
Except for the fact that he didn't have any budding affection for any of the others he had stayed with previously. Cool, said Kirishima. I can't wait.
I should probably get off the phone. I'm really tired, but I have a ton to do before I can go to bed for the night,
said Katsuki. He forced himself to sit up, body protesting at no longer being horizontal. All right, I can't wait to see the new photos you post. Katsuki shrugged.
They're okay.
All of your pictures have been amazing. You could be a professional travel photographer. That sounded like the dumbest job ever, but Katsuki wasn't going to argue. He said goodbye to Kirishima and hung up the phone. He needed to get his laptop set up and start transferring over the files. Day 58.
I just got to my hotel in Ofunado. It's alongside Okirai Bay. Another day to go and I should reach Sendai Prefecture.
Katsuki held the phone between his ear and shoulder as he unpacked his bag for the night. He wanted to update Kirishima personally before he did anything on social media for his followers. It was still strange to think of them as fans. He didn't consider himself any sort of celebrity, yet he had people that would come up to him asking for his autograph when they saw him walking. You're making such good time, Kirishima cheered. He really was. But that didn't help the sigh that escaped him.
Wish I could walk a little faster, though. Are you sure you want me to stay with you when I reach your area?
It was a question that had been weighing heavily on Katsuki's mind ever since Kirishima asked. What if he got his hopes up about meeting and then staying with Kirishima and then decided he no longer wanted him to come at the last minute? More than anything, exclaimed Kirishima. I'm counting down the days. Katsuki smiled wistfully to himself as he set his spare clothes on the bed.
Me too,
he said. His smile often came naturally when he was on the phone with Kirishima, and this was no exception. Day 69. Katsuki had been invited to stay with the most normal person he had ever met in his entire life. He didn't understand what it was about Eijiro, but everything he did and said felt very baseline normal. It eased some of the fears he had about staying in a bunch of strangers' houses for a single night. He did not trust easily, but he had to be willing to trust that all the people that offered him room and board for a night meant well and weren't secretly trying to murder him. It didn't stop him from sending Kirishima a DM to ensure his safety. He sent a ping of the address to Eijiro's apartment. Dynamite Hiker 420. This guy is so normal, it's sus. If you don't hear from me by 7, then he murdered me. Mountain Riot 1016. Please don't get murdered. I will set an alarm and wait for your message. Dynamite Hiker 420. Good. Eijiro did not murder him that night or the following morning. Instead, he made Katsuki dinner, breakfast, and sent him out the door with a packed lunch for later. It was very kind, and Katsuki only felt a morsel of regret for fearing he might end up dead. In this economy, nothing was impossible. Day 81. Katsuki was in the middle of his walk for the day when his phone chimed to let him know he had a new DM. He tapped the screen to see Kirishima's name in the notification window. It wasn't unusual for him to text while Katsuki walked. On the contrary, he seemed to do it even more as time went on, wanting to make sure Katsuki didn't get lonely. It was, however, strange to see Kirishima open with such a serious statement. Mountain Riot 1016. I have something I need to tell you. Dynamite Hiker 420. Okay. Katsuki watched as the bubbles appeared and disappeared on the screen several times. He had to glance up on occasion to ensure he kept walking straight and didn't bump into anything, but otherwise his eyes were glued to the screen. It was taking Kirishima far too long to respond to his one-word message, and he was getting anxious. Finally, after several minutes, a new speech bubble filled up the left half of his screen. Mountain Riot 1016. I like you, and I wanted to get it out of the way now before you get here in case you don't want to stay with me anymore because I made you uncomfortable. Shit, sorry. I know it's something I should have called to say, but I don't know if I could handle hearing you reject me. That was not what Katsuki had been expecting. Katsuki swallowed thickly as he read the message over and over in disbelief. He liked Kirishima, and he hadn't expected Kirishima to like him back. Kirishima was afraid to call him because he thought Katsuki would reject him? What an idiot. Katsuki's heart raced in his chest, but he couldn't help the wide smile that stretched on his face. He had stopped walking to reply. With shaky fingers, he typed back, Dynamite Hiker 420. That's impossible. No one has ever made me feel the way you do. I like you too. There were bubbles on the screen again, but instead of receiving a reply, Katsuki's phone suddenly started to ring. Kirishima was calling him. He cleared his throat, voice thick with emotion, as he answered,
Hey.
Day 90. His newfound relationship with Kirishima became more obvious as the days passed. Katsuki was openly flirty with him in replies when Kirishima would comment on his posts. His expression grew soft every time he saw Kirishima pop into one of his live streams. His other followers noticed the change immediately. Katsuki was still a gruff asshole to the rest of the universe. He didn't want the other internet strangers thinking that they could be as familiar with him as Kirishima was. He ended each of his nights with a phone call to Kirishima and started his days with a text message. In the past, he would have deemed the constant need for communication unnecessary and suffocating. Now, it was the only thing that got him through his days. It was what helped him sleep at night when he was tucked away in a little tent in a public park. Kirishima was radiant, a breath of fresh air, and it left Katsuki winded. How could he fall so hard, so fast for someone he had never met in person? Day 100. Katsuki greatly preferred a mountain hike to get the blood pumping and the oxygen flowing. One of the nice things about this trip was how much of the ocean he got to see. There were plenty of long stretches where he was inland due to it being the fastest route, but a lot of the hike had been along the ocean. His current stretch of the trip brought him back to having the sea at his side. The last couple of weeks had been major cities and countryside. He hit Fukushima, Utsunomiya, and Mount Fuji until he finally made his way to Shizuoka. While Katsuki had missed his parents over the last 3.5 months and had especially missed his bed, it was the mountain hike that he had missed the most. He looked forward to the way his lungs burned from the thin oxygen and the sights that could only be seen when standing on a mountain peak. Those photos had been his most liked. He sent a separate one to Kirishima with a caption attached, "Wish you could see this with me," that had resulted in countless sobbing face emojis in response. Now he had his tent set up in Nishijima Ryokuchi Park in the Suguru ward of Shizuoka. It was directly across the street from the beach. Katsuki had opted to leave his belongings in his tent with a lock on the zipper for safekeeping and crossed the street to the crystal blue waters. Barefoot, he felt the sand between his toes and sighed. Though he had spent plenty of time admiring the ocean, he hadn't had much opportunity to go in it. It was nearly the end of June and the weather was getting hotter the farther south he walked. Katsuki wouldn't fully submerge himself in the water as he was not going to be able to wash the salt off his body tonight, but he would stick his toes in, maybe walk up to his knees. The cool water would provide his body with some much-needed relief, even if it only partially got him wet. He took a bullshit cliché picture of his feet in the sand and posted it. Some jagoff commented about how he should change his account to his feet rather than hiking. He muted them. With his phone in his pocket, he let the tide wash over his feet to his ankles. Growing up in Tokyo, he didn't get many opportunities to go to the ocean and swim. Every once in a while, he would visit Tokyo Bay, but that was always busy with ships going in and out of port. Only a few beaches were open to the public. Most of the ones that lined Tokyo Bay were owned by various resorts. This was different. The beachy sand extended for several kilometers in both directions. Once again, he was left thinking about how he'd like to experience the moment with Kirishima. Soon. By his calculations, he would be there in about 2 weeks, maybe a little less if he pushed himself. Day 105. The solar field next to Misakidai-shubafu Park was an eyesore, but Katsuki had reached Hosocho-Kiga in the southernmost parts of Shizuoka Prefecture. He was only about a week away from meeting Kirishima now, a fact his anxiety felt the need to remind him of with every pressing day. He took a seat inside his tent, wishing the tiny park had a single tree to provide shade. It was late in the day, but he was still cooking inside his tent to hide from the sun's harsh rays. Katsuki could only hope it would cool once the night finally set in.
Hey, losers.
Katsuki greeted into the camera of his laptop. He couldn't talk long, having to preserve the battery since he had nowhere to plug it in.
For those of you wondering, I'll be meeting up with Mountain Riot soon.
Hearts appeared on the screen as people reacted to the live stream. A blushing emoji popped up clearly from Kirishima.
I'm only telling you this because I figured you'd all get weird on me next week if I didn't say something now.
Katsuki ignored the questions, asking if they were dating. He and Kirishima hadn't actually discussed the nature of their relationship. They agreed that they both liked each other and they were now more than friends, but neither one of them had outright said boyfriend. Regardless, Katsuki viewed Kirishima as such. He meant too much to him to be anything less. Several people tagged Kirishima in the comments of the live stream begging for answers. He gave none. Katsuki grimaced.
Sorry for putting you on the spot, Riot.
Kirishima at Mountain Riot 1016, June 19th, replying to at Dynamite Hiker 420. It's no big deal. Kirishima at Mountain Riot 1016, June 19th, replying to at Mountain Riot 1016 and at Dynamite Hiker 420, counting down the days until we can be together. Heart emoji. That earned a flurry of new comments to appear on the screen. The nosy fucks were annoying as all shit. Katsuki rolled his eyes and said,
Anyway, that's all I had to say today. It's hot as fuck in this tent and I can't waste my laptop's precious battery. Catch you losers tomorrow.
He ended the live stream, opting to call Kirishima promptly after shutting off his laptop and stowing it away for the night. It had only been a day, but Katsuki already missed the sound of his voice. Day 112. It was late afternoon when Katsuki entered Kobe Prefecture. He had been dragging his feet, a sense of fear that all the communication he had done with Kirishima over the last couple months was for naught. What if the kind-hearted boxer was actually catfishing him the whole time? What if he was a serial killer and Katsuki was willingly walking into the lion's den? Of all the homes he stayed in over the last 3.5 months, he had never felt as afraid as he did right now. His biggest fear? That Kirishima was completely genuine and perfect. Katsuki would stay with him and never want to leave. He would abandon his quest and not finish the last leg of his trip. He had roughly 1 month to go. What if his commitment wavered the moment he laid eyes on that gorgeous, muscly redhead? They agreed to meet at Suzuran Park, a baseball field in Minamigoyo. It was spacious and public with a supermarket directly across the street. Katsuki could stock up on supplies while he was there and also feel secure about meeting someone that was both a complete stranger and his closest confidant. He sent Kirishima a message to let him know he was about 10 minutes away from the baseball field. Kirishima replied quickly, letting Katsuki know he was on his way by car and how excited he was for them to finally meet in person. The fluttering in Katsuki's chest reminded him of how excited he was as well. He switched to the camera on his phone to take a few pictures of the area and posted a message online about how he was moments away from meeting Kirishima. The comment section exploded. Everyone had been witness to their back and forths for weeks, speculating on the nature of their relationship and expressing how excited they were that Katsuki and Kirishima would be meeting in person. "Make sure to record it," one comment said. Katsuki inhaled deeply in a failed attempt at quelling the nerves that had settled in the pit of his stomach. He gulped, then tapped his screen with shaky fingers, flipping the camera from photo to video, and clicked to go live. Katsuki could see the car before he saw Kirishima. The red record icon glowed in the corner of his screen, and heart emojis filled the recording. The car door opened and a head of red hair poked out of the driver's side door. Kirishima stepped out with the biggest grin on his face. He held his arms up like he was waiting for a hug, then dropped them to his side as if he had changed his mind, second-guessing his decision. Katsuki wasn't the only one who was nervous, and that somehow made all the butterflies from earlier fly away. He picked up his pace. The camera shook, and normally he would curse himself for the shoddy film work, but now wasn't the time for it. Honestly, he'd rather pocket his phone and save the moment just for the two of them. Comments filled the screen, but he ignored them all, eyes solely focused on Kirishima. Katsuki's legs burned, but he pushed through the discomfort into a sprint, and Kirishima's arms went up again, having decided that was the gesture that felt right. Katsuki flung himself into those arms, and without another thought, he pressed a months-long kiss against Kirishima's lips. Maybe they should have talked first, said hello. The time for talking could come later. He let himself be enveloped in Kirishima's warm embrace, inhaled his earthy scent, and felt every hard muscle pressed against his body. It wasn't until they finally broke apart for air that Katsuki remembered he was live, and that everyone was just seeing a street with random pedestrians walking by. He flipped the camera around to show himself in Kirishima's arms and flipped off the camera.
"Peace out, fuckers,"
he said before ending the live stream. "Bakugou," Kirishima breathed, red eyes sparkling.
"Take me back to your place,"
Katsuki answered, though it came out as more of a demand. Kirishima nodded. Reluctantly, he released Katsuki so they could get in the car. They held hands the entire short drive back to Kirishima's apartment. Time passes. The first thing Katsuki did upon arriving at Kirishima's apartment was kiss him some more. He could drink in that warmth for the rest of his life. How he had ever gone a day without knowing what Kirishima's lips tasted like was beyond him. The second thing he did upon arriving at Kirishima's apartment was take a much-needed shower. As he stood under the water's spray, he thought about how thankful he was to have started this journey. Had he not, he likely would have never met Kirishima. To find someone online of all places that wasn't put off by his brusque personality and that wanted him to spend the night after weeks of DMs and phone calls astonished him to no end. Kirishima was everything good in the world, and Katsuki really hoped he wouldn't get murdered before the night was over. He got out of the shower to find Kirishima making them dinner. Could the man get any more perfect?
"That smells incredible,"
said Katsuki, stomach growling automatically. Nothing beat a home-cooked meal. Restaurant and convenience store food just could not compare. "Oh, good," Kirishima said. "It's katsudon. I was afraid you might not like it."
"Love it,"
said Katsuki. He flicked his gaze to Kirishima, and there was another meaning behind his words he didn't intend to say out loud. Kirishima flushed, then cleared his throat. "Why don't you take a seat on the couch until it's ready? You've got to be exhausted from all that walking."
"It's not so bad after a while, but the moment I sit down, the fatigue definitely sets in."
Katsuki let his body meld into the couch cushions. He decided to check his phone while he waited for Kirishima to finish making their dinner. The comments had exploded, and he had more than a few dozen text messages from friends and family that had seen the live stream. He should have figured they would have been watching. He chose to ignore them. Instead, he took a candid photo of Kirishima's back to him as he cooked dinner and posted it to his account. It was captioned, "Muscles for days, drives, and cooks, be jealous." The flood of responses let him know that they were all, in fact, jealous, as he said they should be. Kirishima's phone chimed in the kitchen, and he spun on his heel, eyes wide. "Bakugou!" Katsuki arched a knowing brow.
What?
"I can't believe you didn't... Flabbergasted, he waved a wooden spatula in his hand around erratically. "I have alerts turned on for your account." Katsuki leaned forward, clutching his stomach as he laughed. A tear spilled from the corner of his eye, and he looked up at Kirishima with all the fondness in the world.
"I hope you don't mind,"
he said between bursts of laughter. Kirishima chewed on his bottom lip, teeth poking through the folds of his lips. "Are you sure you want to broadcast that? I mean, you're so popular." Katsuki's laughing ceased as he looked up at Kirishima, deadly serious.
"Everyone online already knows there's a thing between us, and they watched us meet. I want every one of those fuckers to know you're mine."
And then a nugget of self-doubt nestled its way into his stomach.
"Unless you have a problem with people knowing we're in a relationship."
Kirishima abandoned dinner to rush to Katsuki's side on the couch. He seized Katsuki's face in the palms of his hands, pulling him in close so that their noses touched. "Absolutely not. You're everything to me." Katsuki hadn't realized how much he needed to hear those words. He sniffed, then sniffed. His nose wrinkled.
"I think dinner's burning."
"Oh shit!" Kirishima scrambled to his feet and rushed back to the kitchen. Time passes. As much as Katsuki wanted to stay up late, he knew he couldn't. Once the sun rose and light bathed Kirishima's apartment in its orange glow, it would be time for him to leave again. He needed to be well rested for the journey ahead. When they finished dinner, they settled onto the couch together. Thousands of questions raced through Katsuki's mind, wanting to get to know the man beside him as much as he could with the little time they had left together, but he didn't want to ruin the moment with words. They sat quietly, enjoying each other's presence, feeling the warmth that radiated between them. Kirishima wrapped his arm around Katsuki's shoulders, pulling him into his side, and Katsuki pressed his cheek against Kirishima's clavicle. He felt the steady rise and fall of Kirishima's chest as he breathed, and 3 months' worth of exhaustion hit him like a ton of bricks.
"I'm tired,"
he mumbled into Kirishima's chest. A gentle hand stroked his now dry hair, and the weight under him shifted. "Let's get you to bed then. You have a long day ahead of you." Katsuki flicked his gaze up at Kirishima, then down at the couch.
"I'll be fine with just a blanket."
"What?" Kirishima stared down at him nonplussed. "You're not sleeping on the couch. You're sleeping in my bed. Your body needs it. And if you're not comfortable with sharing it, I'll sleep out here." Katsuki shook his head.
"You don't have to do that."
"I want to," Kirishima said.
"Then we'll share,"
Katsuki said.
"I don't mind sharing a bed with you."
He was greeted with a gentle smile and a warm press of lips against his own. "All right, then." Kirishima led the way to the bedroom, holding Katsuki's hand until they were forced to part to climb under the covers. Katsuki rolled onto his side, and Kirishima arched around him, his chest pressed to Katsuki's back. The warm pressure quickly lulled him into the most restful sleep he had had in months. Day 113.
"What are you doing?"
asked Katsuki as he prepared to depart from Kirishima's apartment. The redhead was in the middle of slipping on sneakers as he dressed in a tank top and jogging shorts. Kirishima cocked his head to the side, a confused smile etched on his face. "I'm walking with you," he said, as if it was an obvious answer. "I planned to walk with you for the first few hours. I'll catch a train or a cab back this afternoon, depending on where we're at the time."
"You don't have to do that,"
said Katsuki. "I want to," Kirishima encouraged. "We get to spend more time together doing something you love, and it's leg day." Katsuki eyed him suspiciously.
"Is it really leg day?"
Kirishima laughed deeply. "No, but it is now," he said.
"Fine,"
Katsuki conceded. He let out a fake huff of disapproval, not actually upset by the situation. He could use the company on his walk, and the fact that Kirishima was said company made it all the better.
You better not slow me down.
Wouldn't dream of it, Kirishima said brightly. He snatched Katsuki's hand in his, leading the way out of his apartment. Time passes. Kirishima walked with him for 5 hours. Time that would have normally been spent mindlessly listening to music or a podcast was now filled with idle chatter, everything they didn't get the chance to talk about the night before. Kirishima pointed out all of the local landmarks along the way. That's the school, this grocery store. When I was 12, Honda tripped into that pond when... He easily made Katsuki feel like he had lived those moments with him. A fond smile that was permanently plastered on Kirishima's face filled Katsuki with an inexplicable warmth. At noon, they stopped for lunch. Kirishima would head back when they finished eating, and then Katsuki would be alone again. He tried not to let that revelation sour his mood as they ate spicy shrimp tempura. Kirishima downed 4 glasses of water, but he never complained about the heat and cleared his entire plate. He was an idiot, but a trooper nonetheless.
I guess this is when we say goodbye,
said Katsuki as they walked out of the restaurant. Yeah, Kirishima's voice cracked. I'm gonna miss you. Katsuki's heart ached, a reminder that he too was going to miss Kirishima. A trip wouldn't be the same without him.
Me too,
he admitted.
I promise, as soon as I'm done, I'll come right back, if you'll have me.
He trailed off, flicking his gaze to the ground. Kirishima pulled him in for a tight hug, burying his face in Katsuki's hair. I absolutely want you. Kick ass and hurry back.
Deal,
said Katsuki. He arched his neck to lean into a kiss. They held each other for several minutes, neither wanting to be the one that broke it off, until finally Katsuki pulled away.
I'll see you soon.
He turned away from Kirishima, shoulders slumped as he carried on with his walk. Katsuki feared that if he turned around one more time, he would break for good and never continue. Day 114. Katsuki let out his breath as he stood in the middle of Hyuge Prefectural Mako Park. He was 100 meters from the Akashi Kaikyo Bridge, which was a major hurdle in the trip. The bridge connected the main island of Japan with Awaji Island and did not have a pedestrian footpath. Crossing on foot was illegal, and the American that traversed it 20 years ago was arrested when he reached the other side of the bridge. He could only hope his luck was better. He cleared his throat as he turned on his camera.
I'm about to cross the Akashi Kaikyo Bridge.
Katsuki flipped the camera to show the bridge with cars zooming by, then turned it back to him.
Here's hoping I don't get arrested.
Katsuki left the feed running as he began the 4-kilometer walk across the bridge. He stayed as close to the guardrail as possible, virtually hugging the railing. He didn't talk as he walked and kept his eyes in front of him, ignoring the chat on the screen. Drivers honked as they passed, and he gave them sheepish waves. 20 minutes. That's all he needed to make the trip across the bridge and then was home free. Unfortunately for Katsuki, a squad car sat waiting for him as he reached the end of the bridge. Is there anyone you would like us to call? If Katsuki called his parents to post bail, he would be stuck in a jail cell for hours waiting for them to drive down or take the train. There was only one person he knew in the area, but it seemed incredibly inappropriate to call Kirishima to bail him out when they had only met 2 days earlier. He was such a fucking idiot. He wanted to prove that he was better than the guy that set the record, which meant walking the bridge just like him. But if he had taken a ferry or car, he would have made it to the island without an issue. I could have just walked 4 kilometers out of my way to make up the difference. He sighed.
Can you look up a number in my phone?
He asked. It turned out Kirishima had already been on his way to the jail when Katsuki called. He had been watching the live stream, so he knew the moment Katsuki was arrested. Kirishima was so familiar with the location of the nearest full-service police station, he stood outside of the jail with his arms stretched wide and welcomed Katsuki into him warmly.
Sorry you had to bail me out,
he pouted. It's fine, Kirishima said. I was thinking. Katsuki lifted his head to meet Kirishima's tender gaze. What if I joined you? I packed my bag last night and I was planning to take a bus to catch up with you, but then, He gestured at the police station. Katsuki blinked back tears.
Are you sure?
More than anything, said Kirishima, I want to do this with you. Day 119. Getting arrested had pushed Katsuki's timeline back a day. Normally, he'd be livid. Katsuki had been perfectly on track to beat the Americans' record, and slip-ups like that were unwelcome. Having Kirishima by his side, however, did a wonder on his emotions. It also motivated him to pick up the pace. Katsuki might have been showing off a bit. He didn't want to leave Kirishima behind, but he also wanted to impress him with just how long and how far he could go in a day. Kirishima, also being an athlete, felt the need to keep up the pace. His body wasn't built for hiking, but he tried his damnedest. It was enough. They fed off each other's competitive energy, and having someone to share the sights with him meant Katsuki wanted Eijiro to experience everything he experienced, even more than before. He still wanted to beat the 145-day goal, but Katsuki was also willing to take things slower at times. He let Kirishima get distracted by their surroundings, dragging him this way and that, rather than focusing on the most direct path. Kirishima at Mountain Riot 1016. Hiking with at Dynamite Hiker 420 is the best feeling in the world. Red heart emoji. The last few nights had been the best and worst of the trip. While it was a blessing to have Kirishima with him, curled up by his side when he went to sleep, it was impossible to stay asleep. Two large bodies pressed tightly together in a small tent in the middle of summer did not bode well. If Katsuki thought he was roasting at night before, now was an entirely different story. It was cramped, it was hot, and they were drenched in sweat. Katsuki couldn't appreciate the romanticism of it all when they were so obnoxiously uncomfortable. As much as he didn't want to, they would have to spend more nights in hotels and hostels than in the tent. It would eat up funds faster, but at least now he could split the expenses with Kirishima. Tonight was their first night in a hotel together. The tension that accumulated in their bodies the last few days was replaced with a new tension, a form of expectation, indecision on how the night should go. They had known each other for months, but had only been in each other's presence for a week. Was it too soon to take a step further into their relationship? Was it expected of them to reach that new level of intimacy? Katsuki would be a liar if he said he hadn't thought about it. Kirishima was ripped. The phone camera did not do him justice all those times they video called one another. Kirishima must have been thinking something similar because he was the one to break the tension that stretched between them. We don't have to do anything if you don't want to. He looked at Katsuki earnestly, taking his hands to show his sincerity. I'm just happy to be with you. My body's sore from the last few days, and I could conk out before dinner. But, I wouldn't be opposed to it either if it was something you wanted. Katsuki wet his lips, heart racing, as he weighed the options.
I just want to know where you stand. I care about you, and I'm happy to be doing this with you. It's the only thing that matters to me.
Gods, how did he get so lucky? Katsuki was exhausted too. He nodded once to let Kirishima know he understood. They didn't have to have sex that night, but Katsuki was pretty certain he was in love with his boyfriend. Day 123. It was late, much later than he'd like it to be. Katsuki laid awake in the tent, staring at the darkened yellow ceiling. Kirishima's steady breathing against his shoulder was a constant reminder that he wasn't alone anymore. Despite the heat and the lack of space, his presence at Katsuki's side was wholly welcome. It was cooler tonight, a break in the summer heat, and Katsuki was thankful for not being drenched in sweat. He wished he could fall asleep. They had to be up in a few hours to start the day's walk. Kirishima's stamina had already increased tenfold in the not quite week and a half they had been traveling together. He looked less exhausted and his breathing came easier. It helped that he was already an athlete to begin with. The extensive training he had undergone to become a small circuit professional boxer paid off. Katsuki had asked Kirishima to show him some moves. The demonstration turned into training, which became light sparring sessions. Kirishima was amazing. Katsuki suspected he would have a massive debut in the near future. He'd be fighting people on television in no time. Katsuki wanted to be ringside, cheering him on every step of the way.
Kirishima,
he said, softly nudging the sleeping redhead. Kirishima's eyebrows wrinkled, but he did not stir.
Eijiro,
he said the second time, nudging Kirishima a little more forcefully. Katsuki's breath caught in his throat as he watched Kirishima slowly come alive. Afraid that the use of Kirishima's given name might have been too overly familiar, he waited. Kirishima, of course, just smiled up at him with a lazy, sleepy grin. You said my name, he yawned. He glanced around the dark tent, then settled his gaze onto Katsuki. Is it already time to get up? Katsuki shook his head.
No.
Kirishima tried and failed to blink the sleep out of his eyes, already settling back. What's up? He asked, eyes closed as he buried his head into his pillow. Katsuki watched him. Even in the dark, he could see how his features softened, the way his hair framed his face, the steady rise and fall of his chest.
I love you,
Katsuki confessed. In his entire life, he had never been so forward with his emotions. Hot-tempered and angry, yes, but not this soft side of him that Kirishima seemed to naturally bring out of him. Being with Kirishima, loving Kirishima, was effortless. He made it impossible not to fall head over heels for him. Kirishima, on the other hand, obviously did not expect to be woken up in the middle of the night to a confession of love. All sleepiness was gone from his body as he shot up into a seated position. Katsuki followed suit, sitting up so that they were facing one another. Shit, Katsuki, you can't just... He was at a loss for words. A small part of Katsuki's brain tipped into panic mode, that maybe confessing he was in love was too soon. The rational part of his brain reminded him that he had just woken Kirishima up and he was still processing the confession. That even if Kirishima wasn't in love with him too, it didn't mean that he wouldn't eventually be. He was too kind. He wouldn't hurt Katsuki like that. Gingerly, Kirishima cupped Katsuki's cheeks in the palms of his hands and pulled him in for a kiss. It was short, soft, and sweet. Katsuki's chest fluttered with anticipation. Katsuki, I love you too, breathed Kirishima when they broke apart. He pressed his forehead against Katsuki, soaking in the love they shared. Gods, I love you so much. There was awe in his voice. It left Katsuki choked up. He couldn't sleep after that, but it was because his heart was full and there was a painfully stupid smile plastered to his face that he couldn't get rid of. Katsuki was thankful for the cover of night preventing Kirishima from being able to see how dumb he looked. They curled into one another, limbs twined together and steady breaths synchronizing. When Katsuki did eventually fall asleep, he didn't even get pissed when his alarm went off a few short hours later. Day 128. They camped outside a Buddhist temple in Bungo Ono. Katsuki had significantly upped the number of kilometers they were to do in a day, hell-bent on making his goal. If 145 days was still the deadline, he planned to do it in 140. Kirishima didn't seem to mind. He just enjoyed being along for the ride. They were about 1/3 of the way through the final island. Anticipation clawed at Katsuki's skin. Every step brought him closer to his goal. If it weren't such a terrible idea, he'd keep walking well into the night. If it weren't for the fact that it was a surefire way to get lost and burnt out, he would do it. But he also enjoyed his quiet time unmoving with Kirishima. The monks at the small temple brought them dinner to their campsite. Their kind gesture did not go unappreciated. The first thing Katsuki intended to do once the trip was over was cook a proper meal. He missed cooking. Katsuki had already started to plan out what would happen at the end of the voyage. His next journey was almost more exciting than his current one. Once they reached the Cape, they would rest there for a few days, then take the bus back to Kirishima's apartment. Katsuki would cook a big meal, several big meals, and they would probably stay there for a bit. After that, he'd bring Kirishima home to Tokyo with him, introducing him to his parents and his shitty friends. Katsuki wanted to bring Kirishima on the local mountain hiking trails, share his favorite spots with his favorite person. Day 130. Katsuki was admittedly very tired by the time they reached their inn. The added distance they covered each day began to wear on him. He wouldn't give up. Like hell he was a quitter, but he was tired. Kirishima chatted idly beside him the entire day. Katsuki did his best to make small talk, but most of the time he just grunted in acknowledgement to let Kirishima know he was listening. These days, he didn't have music playing in his earbuds as he walked. The sound of Kirishima's voice was enough to fill the silence and occupy his time. He dropped his bag on the bed with a light thud. Katsuki needed to upload more footage from the day, but his shoulders sagged and his body felt leaden. A light kiss was pressed to the back of his neck and warm hands ran up and down the length of his biceps. Kirishima's chest pressed to his back, strong and firm. Katsuki sank into his touch. He turned, carting his fingers through messy red hair as he pulled Kirishima's face to meet his. The videos could wait until later. For now, he wanted to soak up as much of his boyfriend as he could get. They stumbled their way back to bed, landing carefully on the mattress. They were both exhausted, but heat coiled its way through Katsuki's body, and he knew Kirishima felt the same. They made love slowly, gently, and as if they had all the time in the world. In a way, they did. They could take their time, draw out exactly what made each other dissolve into a puddle of pleasure, because it was just the two of them, and no responsibilities other than walking. Endless walking, endless pleasure. Katsuki rested his head on Kirishima's bare chest, sleepy and sated. He would upload the videos in the morning, before they left. Sleep, while bathed in love, was the greatest feeling. Day 132. With 180 kilometers to go, Katsuki and Kirishima set up camp outside Kumano Shrine in Takanabe, part of the Koyu district of Miyazaki. In roughly 1 week, they would be at their final destination. Katsuki's followers were abuzz with the realization that they were almost to the goal. Everyone eagerly cheered them on. Many had started to follow Kirishima's accounts as well. While Katsuki's photos and videos were more heavily centered around the scenery, Kirishima often posted selfies and candid photos of Katsuki. It was annoying, but their collective fan base ate that shit up. They said it showed how much the two of them were in love. If you asked Katsuki, it was fucking gross. He made a point of saying so on more than one occasion, but he didn't ask Kirishima to stop taking pictures, nor would he. Kirishima enjoyed it, and Katsuki would not take that joy away from him. Instead, he endured. He read all the sappy comments people left on Kirishima's photos. Occasionally, he would comment under them, mostly to antagonize people, but every time Kirishima posted a photo of the two of them, Katsuki would secretly save it to his phone to appreciate later. A thought, or more like a question, had started to bud under the surface of his psyche. He couldn't let it bloom. Not yet, at least. It was too soon. If he nurtured the bud the way he wanted, it would die, as it was not the right season. Maybe, just maybe, it would be the right season a week from now. Day 138. Tomorrow. As they settled into their inn in Shimadomari Beach, Katsuki couldn't believe they finally reached this point. They were only 11 kilometers away from Cape Sata. Kirishima had to talk him out of continuing straight to the end. They would have collapsed sometime in the night had they tried. To distract Katsuki from his boundless energy, Kirishima suggested going to the beach. They dropped their belongings off at the inn and made their way to the water. Katsuki's mind was reeling over the possibilities. Normally, they walked more than double that distance in a day. That meant they could take their time tomorrow, sleep in, get lunch, enjoy the sights. But Katsuki wasn't sure he would be able to even sleep tonight, let alone sleep in come morning. He wanted to go, go, go. He would force himself to take this time, savor the moment. It took the American 145 days to walk the length of Japan. Katsuki was about to do it in 139. He would set a new record. He couldn't stop grinning as Kirishima splashed salt water in his face like a child. Katsuki could be childish too. He wrapped his arm around Kirishima's neck and pulled him under the water, sufficiently dunking him. A laugh erupted from his body as he did so. Day 139. As they reached the tip of Cape Sata, Katsuki couldn't believe his eyes. When he started the journey nearly 5 months ago, there was an ever-present grain of doubt that said he couldn't beat the record. He would miss it by a day or get severely ill, or any number of other reasons. Katsuki most certainly hadn't anticipated standing at the southernmost point of Japan, staring out at the East China Sea with his new boyfriend by his side. He had planned to do the majority of the trip alone, save for when his parents visited him during the Tokyo leg, and still did the majority of it alone, but the last month with Kirishima by his side was his saving grace. The isolation had been hard on him, and he was a recluse by nature. Kirishima's company, first via direct messages, then phone calls, and finally his accompaniment on the trip, had kept Katsuki from spiraling into a pit of insanity. Nights had been cold and lonely. Days had been long and tiresome. Kirishima eased that. He made the time pass quickly. The tent was too small for 2 people, but they made it work. Kirishima had offered to bring a larger tent, but that was more weight to lug around. Instead, they snuggled close to one another when they were forced to sleep outside. The press of his warm body against Katsuki's made sparks dance under his skin. As they watched the sunset hand in hand, Katsuki realized he never wanted to see a view like this with anyone else ever again. They had gone on a tried and true journey together. Katsuki had seen all of what Japan had to offer, and that offering was Kirishima Eijiro. He was the sun, the moon, the stars, the ocean current that ebbed and flowed, pulling Katsuki into his pace with ease. He was the mountain, weathered and sturdy, standing tall with its peaks piercing the heavens. Katsuki released Kirishima's hand and bent down on one knee. He pulled out his phone to record the last moments of his trip, and a surprised and confused Kirishima peered down at him curiously.
Kirishima Eijiro,
said Katsuki into the phone, its camera pointed at Kirishima.
I know we haven't known each other long. Some people would consider this crazy. It is crazy. We've only been talking for a few months, dating for even less. But you've walked by my side for countless kilometers, and there's no one I would rather walk into the future with than you.
Kirishima gulped, a nervous glint in his eyes. Katsuki, what are you saying? Katsuki nodded slowly, chewing on his bottom lip.
Will you marry me?
Kirishima's round eyes grew wide as he took in the moment. Tears dampened dark lashes as he slowly began to nod his head. Cheeks stained red, he parted his pale lips and said, Yes, Bakugou Katsuki, I love you. I was your fan. To think I could go from fan to friend to boyfriend to fiancé in only a handful of months. He trailed off. Katsuki stood up, pulling Kirishima in for a kiss, all while his phone recorded the moment. When they finally broke apart to breathe, Katsuki ended the recording. He quickly tapped on his phone to upload the video, captioned, 139 days down, but thousands more to go. Oh my goodness, friends, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this fic. I love this one so much. Huge thank you to Hyuge for letting me record this one. I really hope there's some more that I'll be able to record of your fics in the future because I absolutely love your writing. The link to this fic is going to be in the description. I strongly suggest going over to check that out. Not only just to give likes and kudos, but throughout this whole fic, there are like little Twitter posts and chat threads and just different photographs that like they would have been posting online, and it's just so cute. It's very like mixed media, and it's really well done, and I just cannot suggest everybody reading this one enough. Like, even if you've already listened to me read it, definitely go over and check out the original, even if it's just to look at the pictures and the fan art and stuff. Okay, I hope you guys really liked this one. I'm so happy that I got to record this one, and I love it so much, and I hope that I will see you guys for the next one. If you are over 18, I am still currently, at the time that this is going up, putting out the videos of Pieces of Us, and if you are not, there will be a one-shot coming at the beginning of May, and it's actually not a Kiribaku, it is a Bakudeku coming at the beginning of May. So either way, if you come back next time for another video, be it Pieces of Us or that Bakudeku, I'll see you next time.